This is CBJ in 30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Find out more and open an account online at telhio.org. Now, here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Welcome to CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Telhio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. Today, it's Monday, and I will be opening the Monday Mailbag to get your thoughts and your questions and answer some of your questions. And I know you have a lot of them after the Game 5 loss in Boston just a couple of nights ago on Saturday. Also, I am going to be joined by Keith Jones. He is a former NHL player, but he is the main studio analyst on NBC Sports. He's been all over every single one of these series, so we're going to talk about all of that as the show progresses here today. But Saturday night was disappointing for the Blue Jackets, losing to the Bruins. Not that they lost so much as to how they lost. And the question is, why did it take so long for the Blue Jackets to get going? And that is a question that I do not have the answer to, because that is a question only they, as a collective group, can answer, because they were the ones playing. But they just couldn't get anything going against the Bruins. They're in the game. Everything's looking good. They're down 1-0. Then they're down 2-0. Bobrovsky's making some big saves, and they just can't get into the game. And then all of a sudden, Seth Jones puts a puck toward the net about halfway through the third period. It goes off the stick of Bruins defenseman Matt Grzelcyk, and it gets inside the post off the pad of Tuukka Rask. Now, initially, well, I'm going to stop here, because I was about to say initially they did not award a goal. They ruled no goal. I was going to say they ruled no goal. But here's what happened. Then they went to a lengthy review. Once they looked at it, they saw without question the puck was in the net, and it was a good goal. So the referee came on the microphone, and he said, the call on the ice has been confirmed. We have a good goal. There was never that call on the ice. The referee, and I even went back and looked at it to make sure. The referee blows the whistle with his hands up in the air, right? He's already got one hand up in the air as if to say, just the play's dead. He doesn't do the wave-off sign, which, you know, in baseball, the umpire says you're safe. In hockey, it's the ref saying you have no goal. He didn't do that. He didn't point at the net, which indicates that the puck is in the net. He did none of that. He blew the whistle with his hands up. And then they went and let replay sort it out. Anyway, the wording of it doesn't matter, I guess. I'm just nitpicking. But the Blue Jackets get the goal, and all of a sudden they come to life. Now, they did give up a goal right after that because everybody pinched in too far, and they got caught in a 4-on-1 rush. Then it was a 3-1 game, but Matt Duchene sets up Ryan Dzingel. He makes it 4-2. All of a sudden, a short time later, like seconds later, Dean Kukin scores the first goal of his NHL career, and it's a 3-3 game. And all of a sudden, the building is silent in Boston. And the Blue Jackets have the momentum, and the Bruins are on their heels. But unfortunately, the Bruins get one more odd-man chance, and they take advantage of it. David Pastrnak got his second goal of the game, and the Bruins win it 4-3. So the bad news is the Blue Jackets lose. The good news is what they found in that 10 minutes is they were reminded that if they just play, they will dominate. Not just win, they will dominate that team. But it took them too long to get going. And again, I don't know why it took them so long to get going, but it did. And that cannot happen tonight. They have got to come out immediately in control. Take control and don't give any portion of it back. None. That's the way they have to play tonight. It's as simple as that. And it's not even so simple. All right, I'm going to the Monday Mailbag right now to get your questions that you have sent me via Twitter at BobbyMacSports. Jason Messick gets the first one today. He says, we locked down the top line of Tampa Bay for 4 games. What has happened in the last 2 games against Boston that has allowed their big guns to get going, and how can this be rectified? Well, it's a couple of things. If you go back to the game at Nationwide Arena, Game 4, when the Boston Bruins got 7 power play chances, that's what got those guys going. Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak. All of a sudden, they hadn't had anything going their way. They're frustrated. They got unfrustrated on that day. Okay? What continued in Game 5 on Saturday, the Blue Jackets just aren't playing as tight of the defense as they were against Tampa and against these guys early in the series. But I do want to caution you to make the comparison of Tampa's top line and Boston's top line is not a fair comparison, because I don't care how many wins the Lightning had during the regular season. I don't care how many points Nikita Kucherov had. I really don't care. This line is better, and it's better because it is more gritty. They can score, and they can grind you. That's what makes them so dangerous. Why do you hate Brad Marchand? Because he does all of these little cheap shot moves, right? But it wouldn't matter if he wasn't a good player. If he was just a cheap shot artist that could never hurt you on the score sheet, you'd still hate him, but you wouldn't care as much. But this guy will come back and get you with points. Look at the goal he got the other night. Bobrovsky makes an unbelievable save, and the puck doesn't stay in his glove, and it comes right back out and right to him, and bam, he shoots it in the same spot and he scores. I mean, he's talented. He's skilled. And that's why you hate him so much, because he's a little rat that is skilled. As I've been coming up through the game, in the minors especially, there's a lot of guys that are little rats, and they just bug you, and they nip away. But they're never going to hurt you with a stick in putting the puck in the net. This guy's different. And he has been nipping away during the series, and now all of a sudden he is having some success. So they've got to get more in the face of that line if they can, especially Pasternak, because now he's going. And that's what makes it so doggone dangerous. I'm going to ask Keith Jones about that line in particular when I talk to him in just a little bit. They are the line. Take that line out, and you've really bettered your chances. But the last couple of games, to your point, Jason, they've really come to life. The Blue Jackets haven't defended them as well. They've got to defend them better tonight. Dylan Halpin says, do you think John Tortorella over-depended on his first defensive pairing? Seth Jones and Zach Werenski had 30 minutes of time on ice. David Savard was next at 18 minutes. Dylan, Blue Jackets are basically down 3 defensemen going into the playoffs. Seth Jones and Zach Werenski, in my opinion, are the best pair in the NHL. Seth Jones is, in my opinion, the best defenseman in the NHL. They are both young. They can both handle the minutes. No, he's not overplaying them. And he dressed 7 defensemen the other night. Adam Clendening barely had any time. And he was on the ice for a goal early. That didn't help him, I can tell you that. Vladislav Gavrikov made his NHL debut. Didn't look bad. In fact, I would be not surprised at all if he's back in there tonight. I would be surprised if it was 7 defensemen again. But I wouldn't be surprised if it were 6 and Gavrikov was in and Clendening was out. That's just my observation from one game. And Gavrikov, well, there was one time I thought he could have almost said one time, really close together. There was a face-off in the offensive zone where the Blue Jackets won the face-off. I think it was Duchesne, not 100% sure, but they won the face-off. Puck came right to Gavrikov, and I thought he should have one-timed it. And he didn't. He held it for a second, then he shot it. Now, I understand the scouting report on him is he's more of he's a good puck mover. He's a first pass out of the zone guy, and he's a good defender. Shooting is not his forte. But it would be nice to see him learn to shoot early in the NHL because nobody knows that. Nobody knows who he is. The Boston Bruins haven't done extensive work with KHL video to figure out who this guy is, right? So, but that's it. That's a tiny little criticism for crying out loud. I thought he was fine. So, again, it wouldn't surprise me if he were in the lineup again tonight. But you can't overplay those guys. You've got to have them on the ice as much as you can. Trevor Kinney follows up on the Gavrikov thoughts. He said, I thought he looked very good. Not to get ahead of ourselves, but should we get to the point where all the defensemen are healthy, would you expect him to be one of the 6 given the limited sample size? If they are all ever healthy at the same time, this team's in the Stanley Cup final, I think. And the answer to the question, Trevor, is no. There's no way he'd be in the top 6. Well, I shouldn't say no way. That's not fair. I would really have to think about it. I mean, I would have McQuaid and Murray back in, and but I wouldn't be looking for room for him right now. But he's played 1 game. And it doesn't matter because they're not all going to be healthy, I can tell you that. Here is MH, who says, what is up with PLD? MH wants to know about PLD. It's all letters. It's an alphabet question here. What is up with PLD? He hasn't seemed like the same player since about the trade deadline. I won't go back to the trade deadline. I know he dropped off a little bit when that happened and Duchesne came in and took his spot and all that. But I will agree with this. He has not been effective enough in this series. Not by far. And I don't know why, because this is a series that plays right to his strengths. But yet he has not stepped to the forefront. I agree with that. And I don't know what is wrong with him. I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. I think the Bruins are probably doing more than I can think of right at this moment to get his attention and to take him out of plays. I think they're preying on his youth and his propensity to get agitated easily. But other than that, he just has to be better. He has to be better. Can't ask a question here. Do I expect 70 or 60? I've already answered that. Ryan Ebersold, who is a dedicated listener. Always on his way to work, he's listening. Here's Ryan's question. Besides the Hurricanes and the Sharks, it seems that teams are really struggling at home during this postseason. Does home ice advantage really mean much in the playoffs anymore? I don't think it means much anytime anymore, to be honest with you, Ryan. Teams are so balanced. They're so good. They're teams that thrive playing on the road. I think the Blue Jackets are that team. They were better on the road than they were at home this year. In some cases, it's easier to play on the road. It's that challenge of taking a crowd out of the game, a big crowd out of the game, is something the players thrive on. Sometimes almost as much as they thrive on the energy provided by their home crowd. So I just think with as much parity as there is in the league. Oh, I'm sorry. I heard somebody the other day say they didn't want to call it parity. They wanted to call it competitive balance. And in this new century of words that makes things sound better than they are, let me go with that. Competitive balance. Because of that, I don't think home ice advantage is what it once was. But there better be some home ice advantage tonight. The Blue Jackets had better take advantage of their home ice tonight, or it'll be the last time they skate on it until the fall. Coming up, Keith Jones from NBC Sports is going to join me. We'll talk about all the playoff series, but especially break down this series between the Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins with Game 6 coming up tonight at 7:15 at Nationwide Arena. This is CBJ at 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. It all begins with a party on the plaza this afternoon at 4 o'clock, followed by the Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins Game 6 at 7:15 tonight at Nationwide Arena. And hopefully the night will culminate with a return trip to Boston for Game 7. Welcome back to CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. I'm Bob McElligott. We're going to talk about all of the series in the NHL and then get to a big focus on this Game 6 tonight between the Blue Jackets and the Bruins. I'm pleased to be joined right now by NBC Sports studio analyst Keith Jones. Keith, first of all, I thought maybe we were going to have another wild card team that had punched its ticket to the conference final, but yesterday the St. Louis Blues went on the road. They were able to get a win in Dallas. They have forced a Game 7 in that series. St. Louis has been tough. The second half of the year, they were one of the toughest teams to beat in the NHL. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise they forced a Game 7.
Yeah, they're a very confident team, very poised under pressure, very good goaltender, and Jordan Binnington, who has yet to lose 3 consecutive games since he arrived in the NHL in the early part of January. So I think the team has great confidence in his play, and I think they stuck to their system. They wobbled a few times in that game. There's no question that they started on time. Their middle was not very good, but they found a way to get an important goal in the second period and take a lead into the third. They were much better in the third period, looked much like they had for the majority of the playoffs in the way that they shut down the Dallas Stars and found a way to win a road game and send it back to St. Louis for Game 7.
Ben Bishop didn't finish that game. As a matter of fact, Colton Parayko hit him with a shot and stunned him and hurt him, which led to one of the goals for St. Louis. Ben Bishop I think he's been in the playoffs what he is. He's a big goalie. He plays very well at times. There are other times that some things get away from him, and he gives up some leaky goals. But he has been good in this series. You think there's anything to that stunner that he took and the fact that he doesn't finish the game? Will he be ready to go in Game 7, in your opinion?
I believe that he will, but there's been a history there of Ben getting some bumps and bruises along the way and missing some important games. So I think that we'll call him questionable for the next game, but I would be surprised if he's not available. Look at a slap shot to the top of the shoulder hurts. There's no question about that, but it's part of the job for those goaltenders. So hopefully nothing broke under there. He was able to stay in for at least one more shot. I thought the Blues were very smart in firing their next shot at high. And if he wanted to stop it, he was going to find out just how good it felt. The shot that he took from Parayko just prior to Blade scoring. So get him out of there, get him refocused and reset, and get him out there for the next game, as I believe what the situation was for Jim Montgomery there. And Ben Bishop, they have to hope for Dallas Stars fans that he's able to go. He's been a really important piece for them all year and has bounced back anytime he's had a rough start.
Let's talk about another goaltender in the West, and that is Martin Jones. There's another guy that at points in this playoffs, it's been like, wow, is he going to be able to get the Sharks to where people think that they can go? Well, he's been pretty good against the Colorado Avalanche in the last couple of games. That's a series that Colorado has to force another game so that they can stay alive. How do you see that one going down?
I think the veterans on that blue line for San Jose are going to find a way to muck it up and win an ugly game on the road. Colorado's speed was not a factor in Game 5. I thought San Jose, with the benefit of having the last change, got the matchups that they were looking for against Nathan McKinnon, and McKinnon showed some frustration. So Jared Bednar's got a very big challenge in getting McKinnon refocused and also getting him away from Vlasic at every opportunity. Vlasic has done an outstanding job in shutting down McKinnon on most shifts, and I think that's a really important part of what the Avalanche are trying to do and create scoring chances with McKinnon on the ice, and what San Jose is trying to do in taking and limiting those opportunities. So I give the edge to San Jose. I think they find a way to get it done, but it will not be easy.
Is that your way of saying San Jose has put McKinnon in a pickle? Is that what you're really trying to say?
Yes, they have. Yes, that's very true. Put him in the jar there.
Talking with Keith Jones. He is a studio analyst on NBC Sports. You see him all the time, every game. And let's go to the East. First of all, your day job, if you will, is working with the Philadelphia Flyers, doing the color analyst on television. You've seen the Carolina Hurricanes all year long in the Metropolitan Division, as we have here in Columbus. I know I was waiting for them to fade out at any point during the season. I thought, okay, this isn't going to last. They won't be there. It's the Eastern Conference Final. They've already punched their ticket. They're just waiting for an opponent. How shocked are you that they're there?
Really shocked. I just didn't think they had enough scoring, and I didn't trust their goaltending. And I've been proven wrong on both accounts. So Rod Brind'Amour deserves a lot of credit, but the players, most importantly, deserve a lot of credit for believing in one another, believing in the system, and playing for one another. And that's what's really important at this time of the year. It's one of the great things about our sport is teams can overcome some shortcomings when they play together and make up for any deficiencies that they have collectively. And I think that's what we're seeing with Carolina. And as a hockey fan, it makes you proud that a team like Carolina can find a way to beat out two teams that on paper were superior. Definitely one in the Washington Capitals, and the Islanders probably more comparable, but they still found a way to get through that series in a hurry, and I think that will benefit Carolina as the conference finals roll around and they continue to watch the Bruins and the Jackets beat each other up.
Yeah, Justin Williams has always been known as Mr. Game 7 in his career for what he has done, but to me, he has been Mr. Season for the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, he was the guy behind the storm surge. He was the guy behind the let's just have fun and embrace all of this stuff. For a guy that is closer to the end of his career than the beginning, it kind of surprised me that was, his attitude and the way that he went into it. But, man, it couldn't have paid off any better for that team, could it?
There's no doubt. And what a captain he has been for Carolina. And you look back at Justin Williams' career, it wasn't him wearing the C around on his jersey. He often wore an A. So to get an opportunity to be the captain and embrace it like he has for Rod Brind'Amour, his former teammate who he won a cup with in Carolina in 2006, and to show a great appreciation for hockey in Carolina and trying to put that team back on the map, at least from an attendance standpoint. He went above and beyond what his call of duty was. It was more about playing hockey and providing leadership on the ice, and he took it to another level and has backed it up with strong commitment to the community and strong commitment to his teammates. It's one of the best stories in the league this year.
I'm talking to NBC Sports studio analyst Keith Jones here on CBJ and 30 Live, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Keith, I'll get back to you in just a moment. First, I've got to tell everybody about Telhio Credit Union and about the great services that they provide, whether it is for your personal banking or your business banking. Either way, they can help you out. They've been doing that since 1934, by the way. Whether it's a checking account, a savings account, a personal loan, a business loan, they've got it all, and you can find out very easily what it all is, all of the services that they have available, and all you have to do is go onto their website, telhio.org. You can search the website, find out anything you need to know. If you don't have time to go through it page by page, just click on the live chat option. Somebody will pop up on the screen and help you through exactly what it is you're looking for. Or you can swing by any local office of Telhio Credit Union and talk to an actual person. Either way you decide to do it, the information will be yours. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in Central and Southwestern Ohio. They're federally insured by NCUA. Coming up, going to talk about tonight's Game 6 specifically, the Blue Jackets and the Bruins, with Keith Jones of NBC Sports as we continue with CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Tonight, it's the Blue Jackets and the Boston Bruins, Game 6 at Nationwide Arena. The Blue Jackets have to win this game if they would like to force a Game 7 in Boston on Wednesday night. Well, if you have your tickets to come to the game tonight, but you're not sure what you're going to do beyond that, like if you have no plans to eat or drink or anything, I can help you out with all of that. In fact, I can get you in the building early as well. That is if you happen to become a part of one of our VIP parties that are going on tonight. You've got the Great Lakes Brewing Company. You've got the High Bank Distillery VIP parties, both going on at Nationwide Arena. And you get earlier access than anybody else to the building if you're a part of one of those parties. Then once you get inside, you have your own private area where your food and drink are inclusive. So you pay one price. You get in early, you get food, you get drink, and then you get to watch the Blue Jackets and the Bruins go toe-to-toe. If you want to find out more, just go to bluejackets.com/playoff parties. I'm Bob McElligott. I am so pleased to be joined right now by former NHLer and NBC studio analyst Keith Jones, who works on the set. You can see him on every game, whether he's working with Liam McHugh or Patrick Sharp or Jeremy Roenick. He's there. He is the constant on that set and on that crew. And Keith, we've talked about the Blues and the Stars. We've talked about the Sharks and the Avalanche. We've talked about the Carolina Hurricanes moving on, and that leaves only one thing. The Bruins and the Blue Jackets, a Game 6 coming up in Columbus tonight. Must win for the Blue Jackets. They haven't been in this spot yet. Now here they are. At least they have the home ice. I was watching you yesterday in the first intermission. You gave the edge to the Boston Bruins, and I understand why, because right now Pasternak and Marchand and Patrice Bergeron, they're going. And that top line is what drives the engine for the Bruins, isn't it?
Yeah, and they play the game, especially Bergeron, with great intelligence and have a great feel for the situation. And I'll be quite honest with you, I thought Columbus was the better team through the first 4 games. I thought they were the better team in Game 4 and deserved better fate. I thought the Bruins were hanging on for dear life in that second period. And players like Dubois and Seth Jones have been just simply outstanding. And you add Boone Jenner into that mix. But Game 5 was a little bit concerning early on. It looked like the Jackets' legs were a little bit tired. And when you play the game as physically as they have, and you're trying to run over a team that has size like the Boston Bruins have, it can become a problem. You're using and expending a ton of energy in trying to make that contact, and you're playing such an emotionally charged game that as soon as you take a breather, the opponent recognizes that, and a good, smart team will take full advantage of that. And I think that's what we saw for the majority of Game 5, but I do give the Jackets a lot of credit for getting to their game in the third period and putting a real scare into the Bruins.
And I think that's what John Tortorella is expecting, that they will carry into Game 6 at home. And I've got to tell you, this team has been like this for, well, even the last couple of years. They're kind of Jody Shelley and I talk about them being a feel-good team, and sometimes they need something good to happen, and then once it does, then they're like, oh, yeah, they remember how they're supposed to do things. And I think that's kind of what happened on that Seth Jones goal that just sneaked in between Tuukka's pad and the goalpost. And the thing that would obviously make it frustrating as a coach is, why does it take something like that to happen for you guys to get it together and go?
Yeah, and that's not John Tortorella's style, right? He's never been, and I know he has been more so this year than any other year. He's never been that rah-rah guy to kind of look for those feel-good moments. He's more of a guy that challenges you to bring your game to another level. So I give him a lot of credit for adapting to the team that he is standing behind. And I also give him credit for his belief that the team will get it done. They still have to go out there and do it, but they have shown for long stretches of this series that they are capable of dominating the Boston Bruins. So do they get to that game? Do the Bruins outsmart them? Do the Bruins use their history of having playoff success, like Bergeron and Chara, the veterans who have won a Stanley Cup before, and David Backes, who has jumped into the lineup and provided calming influence? Do those players find a way to get this Bruins team onto the next round and get past the Jackets? To me, the next game's a flip of a coin, and then Game 7 is going to be a real challenge, if there is one, for the Blue Jackets back in Boston. Yeah,
and I think that what you just talked about there, those veterans, I think if there's one thing that the Blue Jackets are missing, it's those types of voices in these kinds of situations. That's why I think it's a shame Adam McQuaid isn't able to play, because he's a guy that's won a Stanley Cup with the Bruins. He knows what it takes, great leadership, and just has an effect. So, yeah, I think those veteran voices do give the Bruins a little bit of an edge. I'm not going to give them the series, obviously. I'm not. But the Blue Jackets have been through so much this season, too. Every time – look, Keith, there were a couple of weeks ago with 2 weeks left in the regular season, I wasn't even sold they were going to be playing this long, and all of a sudden here they are. So that's why I can't count them out.
Yeah, and I was listening to you call a game against the Edmonton Oilers, an afternoon game, I believe, in Columbus, and Columbus laid an egg. And I was thinking to myself, man, this team is not going to make the playoffs, remarkably, after the additions that were made. So they found a way to right the ship. They battled hard right to the end, and that's the exact approach they're going to have in this next game. I would give Tortorella credit for his speech prior to Game 1, or one of the intermissions against the Tampa Bay Lightning, where he delivered an outstanding motivational speech to the team. And I would suggest that it's time for one more of those. And you can only go to those type of speeches so often as a head coach, but he's going to need to go to it and get to the whip and see what he can get out of his boys. There's certainly a believability about what they've done there in Columbus this year. And if they don't win, there's going to be a lot of changes. It's going to be a different team and possibly less of an opportunity. So they want to take full advantage of this chance while it's in front of them. Yeah, you're no question about that. You're right. And I know you said that yesterday during the Dallas game, too, because the Bobrovsky, the Panarin, Duchesne, Dzingel, you can go down a long list of guys who may or may not be here. Some guys are not going to be here, quite frankly. So it is going to be different. Talking with Keith Jones. He's a studio analyst for NBC Sports. And before I let you go, I do want to ask you, because we talked about the fact you work with the Flyers primarily. A couple of weeks ago, they hired Elaine Vigneault to be the new coach there. Obviously a veteran guy. He's done it in Vancouver. He's done it with the New York Rangers. How much can that one hiring make as a difference for the Philadelphia Flyers going into next year? Well, you hope it's Barry Trotz-like with the New York Islanders, where the team became much more accountable for possessing the puck at the right times and giving it up for good forechecks and making the really smart decisions with the puck in order to keep the goals against down, and that's an area the Flyers need a lot of help. So a veteran coach who's been there before, who's had very good success in markets that are in the spotlight, like the Flyers are, can be really important guys. And Elaine was obviously in Vancouver when they had an excellent team and lost in Game 7 of the Bruins in 2011. Took the Rangers to the Stanley Cup final and coached in the Montreal market, which we all know is one of the most difficult in the league. So he brings in a wealth of experience and should have the respect of the players when he arrives, and then it'll be whether or not the players can relate to him, buy into what he's selling, and I'm pretty sure that they will. And I think they'll have some new additions along the way as well. They're going to be buying over the summer or making significant trades to change the complexion of the team, and it should go a long way in helping them get back in the playoff picture.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see what everybody looks like next year. I'm just hoping that I'm not worried about that on Tuesday morning, that I'm waiting another couple of weeks to worry about. That's all.
Yeah, stay confident, Bobby. Stay confident. We just got to keep those boys going.
Hey, love watching you on TV. Love the job that you do, and I'm being honest. And I think we were talking about veterans that make a team better. I think you, the broadcast veteran, is really helping Patrick Sharp to become, well, quite frankly, really sharp at that job. I enjoy his work.
He's very good. And he loves it too. Like, he's really into it. He pays attention to everything. He's watching games. He's good. He's good. He doesn't quite have my look, but he's hanging in there. So we'll keep him going with that, Bobby.
That is NBC Sports studio analyst Keith Jones, who's also a former NHL player in his own right. Coming up next, I'm going to answer more of your questions from the Monday Mailbag that you've sent me on Twitter at BobbyMacSports. We'll continue to get set for the Blue Jackets and the Bruins. Game 6 tonight at Nationwide Arena. This is CBJ in 30 Live, presented by Ohio Credit Union. 4 o'clock this afternoon, the Plaza Party begins outside of Nationwide Arena. 7:15, Blue Jackets and Bruins Game 6. Blue Jackets in a must-win. Our pregame coverage starts at 6:15 tonight along the Blue Jackets radio network. When you're down at the arena, make sure you stop by the Tim Hortons there, because when you purchase a Stinger donut, Tim Hortons is going to donate $1 to the Blue Jackets Foundation. Hey, what a great night on Saturday, even though the Blue Jackets ended up losing in Boston. Over 13,000 people packed Nationwide Arena for the watch party. That's incredible. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was fantastic, and the number just kept on growing and growing and growing. And that's what's going to happen. The Blue Jackets win this game tonight. Listen, like people have asked me, what do they have to do to win the series? Back to the old one game at a time. You can't win 2 games tonight. You can only win 1. All you can do is concentrate on this game and get to a Game 7 and go from there. But it's going to continue to grow as they do that and as they move in that direction. Back to your questions on Twitter at BobbyMacSports. Jason Scope says, it doesn't seem like we match up with Boston's physical play. Do you think they would create more chances if they focused on opening up the ice with speed and skill rather than laying the body? Looks like matching Boston's physical game has slowed the Blue Jackets and put them in the box. They're not going to let you play with speed and skill. They're going to make sure it's a physical game. So it's easy to talk about, but it's hard to do. Blue Jackets just have to be smarter about the physical play, and I think they got much smarter in Game 5. Speaking of that, Kyle says, Josh Anderson has taken an absurd amount of penalties, a lot of them in the offensive zone. Do you think the Blue Jackets are trying too hard to be physical, and it is costing them in the end? Yes, they have been guilty of that in this series at times. There's no question. So enjoy your day if you can. But tonight, Plaza Party starts at 4 o'clock. The game starts at 7:15. It's going to be something. The Blue Jackets trying to make history again and get to a Game 7 against the Boston Bruins. We'll find out if they can do it just a little bit later on tonight. Until then, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.